Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, where we celebrate every single day the people who are working so hard to make Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. You know, we've had a wonderful string of guests on this show, including recently the tribute to George Schlogel, where we had community leaders from across coastal Mississippi, including former governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour, join us. If you missed that, I would really encourage you to go to the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page or to the Ricky Mathews Show Facebook page, or you can go to SuperTalk Mississippi YouTube or your favorite podcast. We try to be there with this show however, whenever you want to engage with us. The feedback continues to be really incredible. You know, I particularly enjoyed doing a live remote down at the down at Town Green during cruising the coast, not only to celebrate the Mississippi economy, the economic engine of the tourism economy in Mississippi in action. It was just incredible to see that, but also to get an opportunity to interact with listeners. So many came by to say hello. So many of them visited and took pictures, and it was awesome. I don't get to do that too often. I've probably done since we started the show, soon to be 4 years ago, amazingly. We've probably done 5 live remotes, so don't get out very often. And when we do in that sort of way, in a live remote setting with the team from SuperTalk, it's awesome to be able to interact with people. But we appreciate, Kyle and Cammie and I continue to appreciate the feedback we get. We enjoy celebrating coastal Mississippi, and it's been a great journey. And as you know, we've branched out now on Thursday to the Jackson and Delta markets. We'll be adding more days and more communities going forward. So the show's doing really well, and it's because people like you are paying attention and listening and enjoying with us the stories of so many people who are working so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. You know, I was excited when I saw the next guest pop up on the agenda, because Nina Parikh is someone I really enjoy visiting with. She's the director of the Mississippi Film Office here in Mississippi. She's been there over 20 years, and she's seen this incredible evolution of the film industry in this state, and really arts in general. And we're going to catch up with Nina. We could have a special guest along the way. We're not sure yet, but if we don't, that's cool too. We're going to continue to roll on through. How you doing, Nina?
I'm doing great. I'm always happy to be on your show. You're always so happy. It's awesome. Awesome to bring in good news and good stories. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, here's my view. As you know, I retired in 2016, and I've been retired for a little over 4 years when I had the opportunity to come do this show. And it took me a while to kind of decide I wanted to do it. But I'm here because I want to be. I'm here because the thing I missed about being a publisher is connecting with the community. And the day I don't wake up looking forward to doing this show, I'll go back to retirement and enjoy retirement. But I've enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed from time to time getting involved in issues that are important to Mississippi. And as long as the folks at SuperTalk continue to give me a voice, I'm going to use mine in a way that's positive. And 99% of the time is going to be about enthusiastically celebrating this state and Mississippi. And I know that's why you're doing what you're doing, because the kind of work that you do, Nina, you could do it anywhere, but you've chosen to stay in Mississippi, and it's fun to contribute toward advancing the ball here, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing about the film industry, but I think it's across the board, it's not just the film industry, but you get to be involved in things at a very high level if you choose to be. It's one of these places where if you want to be immersed in something, you're probably 2 people from actually making that happen. Learning who the mover and shaker is in that world, the leader in that world it's right there at your fingertips. And so oftentimes I'll tell people that want to get into the film industry and they're talking about moving away, I'll oftentimes say, you might want to dip your toes in here, because you'll establish yourself more quickly here than you will in, say, a place like Los Angeles, where it's an ocean that you're trying to make an impact. Whereas here, we have some lakes, we have some ponds, and you can be a big fish pretty quickly. here. And I think that, carries over to so many things in Mississippi. I use like the Sundance Film Festival as an example of that sometimes. When you go to the Sundance Film Festival, which is one of the biggest film festivals in the world, you go to a film screening, you're lucky to get a ticket. You have to stand in lines forever. Let's say you get in there and then the film happens, the filmmaker's there to do a Q&A. Hopefully, if you have a question, you'll get it answered, but you really easily may not. But then you come to a film festival here in Mississippi, whether it's something on the Gulf Coast or in Jackson or Oxford, you will get a ticket, more than likely. You will hear that Q&A, and afterwards, you're probably walking down and saying hello to that filmmaker directly or the actors, and then you're probably going to a reception afterwards and connecting with those filmmakers. So I just think the accessibility in Mississippi is so great, and particularly if you're in the arts and you want to be influenced and have the experience of connecting with people that have already accomplished some success and to help you take the next step. So it's really cool to be a part of that.
Well, Nina, what's interesting is the longer you stay in this position, you've been able to, or as long as you've stayed, let me put it this way, in this position, you've been in a position where you've seen really dramatic change in the movie industry. You've seen, reality TV shows come to fruition. You've seen streaming services emerge as a big part of the revenue stream for production companies, et cetera. Big changes in just movie making in general. And it gives you a perspective, doesn't it? I mean, you're not just, while a lot of the work that you see plays out in Mississippi, oftentimes you're dealing with producers and companies that are not from Mississippi that are here and bringing their perspective. And I mean, it's a fast changing world, isn't it?
It is. When I started in the film office 25 years ago, so I celebrated my 25-year anniversary last week or so. There certainly weren't any filmmakers that are Mississippi-based making feature films. There were some that were making short films. We were lucky to have one or two feature films filming in the state, other people coming into the state to film when I started. And then now we're at a point where we have half a dozen Mississippians making feature-length films in the state, multiples. The last couple of years, we had an average of, say, 21, 22 feature films filming in the state. That's outrageous. So the work that I do personally has changed dramatically over the 25 years. And it is really cool to kind of watch the trajectory. There are a lot of people that are in jobs for just a couple of years and they move on, jump to the next one. And so they don't get to see the patterns and how the patterns change. So that's been pretty remarkable. I love it when I've been able to see a student go, from wanting to be in the film industry to then having made their first feature film in Mississippi. That's incredible. And some of those people I've taught myself. Others, I've just seen their work at a film festival. But to be able to follow that is like you're literally watching dreams come true.
It is, and what's interesting is it all comes back to their passion, their dogged determination, and their creativity. Mm-hmm. I mean, stars can emerge, whether you're talking about actors or producers or writers or whatever. They can emerge from anywhere at any moment. Absolutely.
I mean, even department heads, like a costume designer. I mean, I love to tell this story about Caroline Eslin, who's from the Gulf Coast. I don't know if I've told you this before. She grew up in Pascagoula. She and I went to USM at the same time. She studied film. She was really interested in like music videos and short form things. And she always dressed really cool. So she's a very creative person in many ways. When I started at the film office, one of the first features that came through was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So I was helping that movie find crew members locally. And she, at that point, was interested in maybe the costume department. So she went and worked on that at, the lowest job within the costume department, a production assistant within the costume department. She is now the costume designer for Barry Jenkins, the director. And Barry Jenkins directed the Oscar Best Picture winner, Moonlight. So she did the Underground Railroad series. It was on Amazon a couple years ago. She just finished a series project with Jason Momoa from Game of Thrones. It's called Chief of War, I believe. And she's from Pascagoula, so
You'll have to give me her contact information. I'd love to do a show focused on her. That's a great story. Listen, Nina, when we come back on the other side, we'll remind people what the Mississippi Film Office is. What do you do? And then we'll talk about some of the films that are actually out there, some of the ones that you are most proud of that Mississippi has had the opportunity to sort of be on this grand stage. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Nina Parikh, who's the director of the Mississippi Film Office. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I have my friend Nina Parikh, who's the director of the Mississippi Film Office, celebrating her 25th anniversary with the Film Office. That's awesome. She went to New York University and the University of Southern Mississippi. She works as a producer. She's even done her own film that was actually at Sundance Film Festival. So when she talks about the Sundance Film Festival, she doesn't do it just as a film office director, but she talks about it from someone who actually has experience bringing a film, in her case, Ballast, to the film festival back in 2009. And she's, a co-founder of an important film festival here in Mississippi, the Crossroads Film Festival and Society. And I mean, the list goes on and on. But it's all building blocks, isn't it, Nina?
It is building blocks. And I think if somebody is in a job for a couple of years, they don't really see that. And I've just had this great fortune to be able to see how one thing builds on another. We just had a film summit in Jackson, and we do this every 3 to 4 years. So the last one I think was 2018 or 2019. And that's an opportunity for us to bring the industry together and bring people that work in the industry worldwide to share information with our industry. And the wonderful thing about this, so the first summit I think was in 98 or 99, so right about when I started. And the reason we did it was because I had been freelance and I worked as a camera assistant mostly, and there weren't a lot of camera assistants in the state. So I had the great fortune of hopping around, so I could work on productions in Jackson and on the Gulf Coast and North Mississippi, because I was one of the very, very few camera assistants, and every production needed one. So I'd meet these people around the state, and I would mention to somebody on the Gulf Coast, "Oh, do you know this person from Jackson? I think you guys would get along really well and work together well." And they'd say, "Oh, no, I don't know that person." And I just kept feeling like we all need to know each other because we're a small community. What could we do if we knew each other? And Ward Emling was the director at the time when I came into the film office, and he was also thinking similarly. So we created this summit to bring all the people from around the state together, and then we could start building our industry. And that certainly happens. I mean, we see the seeds get planted at every summit. From that first summit, the Crossroads Film Festival came to be, the Mississippi Film Alliance came to be. There were filmmakers who'd never made anything before who connected with other people, and so then they ended up making projects. And so this past summit, which happened at the end of August, there were a lot of people I didn't know. So that was kind of exciting. It's you're excited when people come to the table, but then when you see a bunch of people out there that you're not aware of and what they're doing, then you're like, oh, well, one, yay, our message is getting out because they showed up. But two, what is it that they're going to create that's going to come out into the world? So it's pretty amazing. As you talk about building blocks, I've been talking about it like planting seeds, and I'm already seeing things starting to emerge from the ground from some of the seeds just in this past August. So it's really cool.
So when you think about the film industry in Mississippi, it really takes a village. You think about the role the legislature can play. You think about the role the governor can play. You think about the role the business community can play. It's a discussion that is under the umbrella of economic development. It's under the umbrella of public relations for the state of Mississippi, because you never know which film is going to get out there that's going to put the culture of Mississippi on a big stage. And there have been so many good examples of that, haven't there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the one that was unexpected, I think, is Hometown on HGTV, which has changed Mississippi so dramatically. They're going into season 8. They just got renewed for season 8. And some people might look at it just as like, oh, well, what's the big deal? They're just renovating houses. Well, Ben and Erin Napier and the community in Laurel and surrounding Laurel, they are changing things. It's not just about home renovation. They are telling a story about small towns in America. They are showing us the diversity that exists in small towns in America, and specifically in Mississippi. And maybe that's unexpected to some people around the country and world. Laurel, Mississippi is a different place than it was 10 years ago, like remarkably different. I don't know if you know much about Laurel, if you visited Laurel, but 10 years ago, there was nothing downtown. Now, every storefront's full. There are license plates from all over the country every single day driving through. If you're paying any attention to popular culture in the United States, you will recognize Ben and Erin's names very easily, and they're doing things beyond that too. So yes, they have this show, but they've grown their community, and they have other businesses. Ben and Erin have other businesses that are affecting people all over the world. And now Erin has an organization called Osprey, which is encouraging families to delay the use of social media with their children. And so their thought, I think, is if there are big communities of people committing to this, then it can actually be done. Whereas if you just let it be, at some point your kid's going to say, well, my friend's on social media and they're on social media. Well, why can't I be on social media? But they're actively trying to grow communities so that you delay that use and have more in-person interaction ultimately. So they're doing cool things. They're doing really cool things. And it stemmed from the show, but it's grown because people are committed there in Laurel, Mississippi.
Well, what I love about it, though, is they're using their platform to do good. And, it goes to, so for someone who's not paying attention to this, they don't even really know what we're talking about.
Right.
But if you don't know what we're talking about, you should go do a search about it, because the reality is, you never know where these celebrities that can sort of touch a nerve, in people who follow the show, and then the resulting sort of reverberating impact on the local economy that show has been. I mean, it's profound, really, isn't it, Nina?
It is. It is. I mean, could we? Is it possible for us to have 3, 4, 5 hometowns? If it is, I'm working toward that. Whatever we can do to get there. The producers of the show of Hometown are interested in doing other shows in Mississippi. So, they're looking for stories. We're helping them find stories, and hopefully they will continue to tell stories in Mississippi. But I was just at the Governor's Conference on Tourism last week, and one of the backdrops for the speakers had something on it written, said, Mississippi is a story worth telling. And I thought, I've believed that since the moment I started before I started at the film office, and that doesn't ever go away for me. Every single day I feel that way, that there is a story in Mississippi that is worth telling, and I feel super great about what I get to do every day in the same way that you do, Ricky. You wake up every morning and you're like, oh, we get to tell these stories, we get to connect with people, and Yeah, it's.
You know what? I'm going to do some brainstorming with you real quick. But you and I chatted a little bit about Steve Azar when we first started the show before we actually came on the air. But he, having written the new state song for Mississippi, One Mississippi, and he's the music and cultural ambassador for the state, and the way he represents the state, he's helping produce other young artists now out of the Delta State studio there. One of the best music studios he's ever been in. The way he describes it.
Oh yeah, that's the DMI, the Delta.
Yeah, he's doing incredible work there. And after having this great career in Nashville, to come back home. And one of the I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but the documentary he did, There's Something in the Water, about writing the Mississippi Reunion album that he did. That's the songs in the album are songs that are named after Mississippi cities. Mm-hmm. And the Kingsmen, who were the backup band for B.B. King, are on this album, and the documentary is about all of them getting together and doing this album. When Steve and I talk about the music history of Mississippi, both whether it be country or whether it be blues or whether it be rock and roll, with Elvis Presley having been here, the home of American music, seems to me there's a show somewhere in that. An emerging artist. I think about Kingfish, for example, and his work, and there's so many others, emerging blues guitarists and singers and writers that go to Europe and they're famous. They're literally famous when they get to Europe, and they come back here and they drive an 18-wheeler. But there's a story in that somewhere. There is a reality show of some sort that touches the nerve. When you think about the impact that the Mississippi blues story had on the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and so many others, and how this whole European sort of blues network cranked up because of people like Robert Johnson, who didn't get discovered till long after he died. When you think about that history, there's something there that could touch the international nerve centered around Mississippi's music contribution. So I don't know if that's even where they would want to go, but Steve would be a really good host of such a show like that. It would be incredible.
All right. If the hometown folks are listening, producers of
you can share this with them. I would love to inspire the discussion around something like that. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Nina Parikh. You never know where the seeds are going to come from and who's going to plant them and how they're going to grow. There's so much creativity in Mississippi. You think about whether it's the film industry or music or whatever, there are so many incredible leaders that have gone on, as I refer to them, Nina, just like the hometown. They go on to sort of be ambassadors for the state. They go beyond the state of Mississippi, and now they're representatives for the state. And we could name so many of them. Morgan Freeman maybe being at the top of the list on being that sort of ultimate ambassador. But there are many of them, aren't there?
There are. I was just thinking about another show. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's a show called True South that's on the SEC network. And it's hosted and produced by two Mississippians, Wright Thompson, who's an author, and then John T. Edge, who's also an author and works in the food space. He was one of the founding directors of the Southern Foodways Alliance. And they do this show called True South. It's all over the Southeast, but they've done some shows in Mississippi. It seems funny to do kind of a culture show on a sports network, but because sports is, particularly football, is so centered on the South, they decided to tell the stories of the South. So we've got these two Mississippians. They live in Oxford. They travel the Southeast and tell the stories of small towns, food-related, culture-related, not really sports-related, on the SEC network, which is cool that they're telling these stories. Another thing I wanted to mention, another person also from the Oxford area is Michael Ferris Smith, who's an author. He just had a new book come out. I wish I had the title in front of me. Salvage can't remember the rest of the title, but Michael Ferris Smith. Anyway, he's written 2 books that have been adapted to screenplays and been produced. And he did the adaptation of the books to scripts, which is rare. Most of the time, an author does not adapt their book to a screenplay. So he's adapted them. They got picked up. They've been produced. One of them was made in Mississippi about a year and a half ago in Natchez, and the book is titled The Fighter, and the movie is called Rumble Through the Dark, and that's coming out in November in theaters and then streaming, of course. And the other one is called Desperation Road. So that one was not filmed in Mississippi, but it's obviously written by a Mississippian. I think Mel Gibson is in Desperation Road, and then the other one, Aaron Eckhart is in Rumble Through the Dark. So those are coming out soon. So that's a really exciting thing, that we have an author in Mississippi who's adapted his work, and they've actually been produced. So, there are a number of writers that might get their work adapted to a script, but it never gets made. Oftentimes it sits on a shelf and you're waiting to get that funding. So this is happening. So all these new seeds being planted all over the place.
Well, who's going to be the next John Grisham or William Faulkner or Eudora Welty or Richard Wright, or, the list goes on and on. But who's that next one going to be? And they're there. They're there. They probably are already making themselves known as we speak. But you have to create an environment. You have to create an ecosystem that the film office is so dedicated to creating, that includes working with production companies so they can be successful with their filming efforts in Mississippi. It includes working with the legislature to create incentives for them. It's tapping to them on a number of levels. It includes, in fact, the work that you do in even teaching film to young people to teach them, do they have a hidden talent that could emerge, that could become the next John Grisham, for example. You feel that, though, but to be successful, you really have to hit on a bunch of different cylinders, don't you?
You do, absolutely. One of the panels that we had during the summit was cool to see these people on the same stage together. So we had Angie Tarrant, who is the producer of Hometown, one of the producers of Hometown. We had Wright Thompson, who's one of the producers of True South. We had Patrick Ian Polk, who is a producer and director from Hattiesburg. He doesn't live in the state currently, but he has produced television for quite a long time. He actually produced the first LGBTQ-focused series for the first channel, the first network for that type of programming. There's a show called P-Valley that's on Showtime, I think, or Stars. I can't remember which, but he's one of the producers of that. And then we had Hudson Hickman, who had lived in California for, 25, 30 years and moved back to his hometown of New Albany. And he produced things like he was on The Love Boat and MacGyver and all sorts of big shows like that. And currently now he produces some of the Dolly Parton specials that have won Emmys recently. So there was like a Christmas special with Dolly Parton. So, having those people on the same stage, all having a tie to Mississippi in some capacity, and knowing all the seeds that they have planted for themselves, and now for all of these people, that have worked on their projects. That's just incredible. It's incredible. And they all came from such different backgrounds in terms of the type of work they do. So they were excited. Just the energy on the stage between them was fun to watch, because you could see light bulbs going off in their heads, like, oh, we could do this and maybe we could work together. And what about this show? So just seeing it kind of organically blossom in front of you is so cool.
It is. Listen, my wife and I were talking yesterday morning, for a matter of fact, and I'm a former publisher, and I get frustrated with the political situation in America. I think most Americans are somewhere in the middle, And I like to talk about that from time to time, about how most of us agree. There are center right or center left, but most of us are somewhere in the middle. But the polarized ends are too often deciding the agenda. And I'll post something on my personal Facebook page every now and then, sharing some frustration, but not being too political. And she said to me yesterday morning, she says, "Don't do that at all." She says, you know, we spent the early time of our family going to Dollywood every year. We love Dolly Parton and what she stands for and the way she can represent so many people. And she looks at me and she says, "You need to be Dolly Parton."
Yes, everybody needs to be Dolly Parton.
Don't make anybody mad. Bring people together. Love everybody. And you know what? That's really, I would say 99.9% of the time, I'm not trying to be Dolly Parton. Let me make that very clear. But 99.9% of the time, I'm trying to live up to the ideal that she stands for. You know, this principle that she stands for, that we can all get along, you know, that we can all go about things together. And, you know, I would bet in your position, you have to be very much like that too, because you meet people from all walks of life, don't you?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I like to say that, you know, I have to be a great diplomat for both inside and outside of the state, and we all are in our office. All sorts of people come through our office with all sorts of subject matters. Some things we like, some things we don't. It doesn't matter. You know, we're just here to connect the dots and make sure people can do the work that they choose to do. Yeah, it's a great privilege to be that ambassador and diplomat.
Hey, listen, I know this for a fact, that changing the state song for Mississippi, changing the flag for Mississippi, every chance we get, talking to people who are all about trying to bring people together. You know, I know whether you're African American or some other race or white, it doesn't matter. That when people find success in the state and then they leave and have to go represent the state in other places, they do carry a burden with them, and they often talk about that it's a burden to say, I don't know what's in your head about where I came from. I don't know what your perception of Mississippi is. But let me, through my actions, show you who we are, what's in the heart and soul of Mississippians. I hear it over and over again that people believe, and I say it's a burden. I don't mean that they're literally carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, but they feel a responsibility, frankly, for dispelling the myths. And there's always going to be division in any state. There's history in every state. But I think for the most part, when you think about where Mississippi is today, we're in a much better place than we were before. We've always got more work to do, but that's the message of this show. That's what I want to press forward. And I have a I don't know if it's a chip on my shoulder, but I guess you can call it that. I mean, that's okay to call it that, to represent Mississippi in a way that I would want others to see us. You know that? And you feel the same responsibility, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do. You know, I'm raising a Mississippian. I'm a proud Mississippian, and I know, as you do, Mississippi has a challenging history.
Yeah.
And when you say the name, people are like, "Oh, you know."
Yeah, they do. They do. Some of it we deserve, but a lot of it we deserve. But the evolution from that point in our history to where we are today is one thing that I think people should say more about. You know, from their heart and from their soul. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Nina Parikh, head of the Mississippi Film Office. We'll see you after this. Back to my friend Nina Parikh, who's the director of the Mississippi Film Office. We knew this when we started the show. We never know where it's going to go. We never know. And she's super passionate about this state. I am too. You know, I was a publisher for a long time. I've been committed in the community for a long time. And now I've been doing the show for 3.5 years. You know, it seemed to be going on 4 years. Nina's been at the film office for 25 years. In that period of time, we've seen a lot of change. We've met a lot of great leaders. We've seen some that could change their message. But at the end of the day, we see the best of what's in Mississippi. And so I'll know when I'm going to spend time with Nina that, you know, we're going to end up getting into some of that, which I'm thrilled to do because it's very positive. At the end of the day, what we talk about is very positive. Hey, listen, Nina, tell me about Daniel Lewis.
Yeah, Daniel Lewis is a producer who is based in Louisiana, but he's made like 6, 7 projects in Mississippi. And it's not what you expect either. I mean, I think oftentimes you think about filmmaking as, the big movie that's going to be on the big screen. Or you might think about, like we just talked about, Hometown that's on HGTV. But he's making things for like Lifetime and Hallmark Network. He's making Christmas movies. They're about to come out. November hits, and suddenly the Christmas movies will be on Lifetime and the Hallmark channels. So he makes those. He makes things for the Sci-Fi Network. So these are lower budgeted projects that don't have the pomp and circumstance of a big theatrical release. They're not Oscar winners or anything. But they are the bread and butter of so many filmmakers and so many artists, actors. And he has this niche. He's done these projects all over the Southeast. He really loves being in Mississippi. So I think he's done maybe 5 on the Gulf Coast, and then he did 2 in Natchez, Mississippi. The last couple of years, it was Every Time a Bell Rings and New Orleans Noel. So both Christmas movies. New Orleans Noel, of course, is a New Orleans-based story, but they shot most of it in Natchez. So that was cool for them to do that. And he plans on coming back. I was hoping he was going to be able to join us today, but he is on a movie in, I think, Washington State. So I'm guessing that maybe they had a late night.
Hey, but you know what's interesting about him is that you say he's found a niche, and they aren't particularly high-budget films, but I think the Hallmark Channel has done a terrific job of developing their brand around these feel-good things. Because I've watched my wife Ann or her mother and others, they'll kind of gravitate toward it because they get sick of all the bad news. They get sick of social media, and they just want to kind of get their brain freed up for a little bit. Yeah. And they're really well done, actually.
They are. Yeah, they do a great job with these projects. And I mean, think about, there's a huge risk with something at a box office at the theater. You put it on the Hallmark Channel or Lifetime, and you're going to have an audience for a long time. Those movies run over and over and over. Christmas in Mississippi, which was filmed there in Gulfport and surrounding areas, has run every year for the last 5 years. And the big Christmas presentation that y'all have there in Gulfport, which I can't remember the name of right now, but they featured that in the movie. And so people all over the world know about that display of lights that y'all do in Gulfport.
Harbor lights.
Harbor lights. Yeah. So people come to that from all over the Southeast, or maybe all over the country.
It's exploded. It really has. The social media. In fact, when I talked to the mayor and Jace Payne, who's the marketing director for the city, the social media muscle that comes out of that event is incredible. People driving through and sharing it with their family and friends from all over the country, and then they want to come and see it, and it's really exploded. And Rick Carter from Island View has invested heavily in helping make it be the best it can be. And
so Rick Carter and Daniel Lewis have worked together as well on some of these projects. So.
Right, I'm aware of that. For a matter of fact, I was aware of that. So and he's proud of it. He's proud of that connection, because he wants Mississippi to be viewed in the best light possible, and it's important to him as well. Hey, if you think about the shows in the short time we have left, or the movies that are being produced on the coast, what's been down here recently?
Oh, recently you had Sylvester Stallone there in a movie called Armored. So they were actually in Pearlington. So that hasn't been a place that's been featured in the past, to my knowledge. So that's cool, a different part of the Gulf Coast being featured. And that producer actually is a return producer too. So his name is Randall Emmett, and he's done, I think, 4 movies on the Gulf Coast. And those are usually, in the action genre with some big name. So he'll probably be back again, but that has just finished. We have some things coming. I can't announce them yet, but, we're trying to get over the hump of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. We're at a point where the writer's strike is ended, but still the actor's strike. But once those are both resolved. It looks like we're going to have a couple back-to-back movies on the Gulf Coast that are new genre. Super fun. I can't wait to be able to announce those. So yeah, there are things coming up. It's exciting.
Nina, I love spending time with you. Your enthusiasm for this state is contagious. And I love just letting the conversation go wherever it's going to go. And today was no exception to that rule. But it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you. It's always a great break in the day-to-day to get a call and say, hey, Ricky wants you on the show. And I'm always like, yes, I'm on. I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, thank you. I'm honored for you to say that with all the people you come in contact with. But this has been Nina Parikh, the director of the Mississippi Film Office. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you. You too.